Hello, am I on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can hear me okay.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, first of all, it's great to be with you today, and I want to thank you for the invitation to join you remotely. I especially want to thank Damon Wilson and Jay Healy and Clara Jordan at the Atlanta Council for all their efforts to make this possible. And of course, I'd rather be with you there in person. So it's somehow fitting, I guess, that this discussion is about the promise of digital democracy is happening over Skype. So, which has itself obviously democratized communications in a really an incredible way. So, before I guess I begin, let me just say before I begin my prepared remarks, I have great interest in increasing voter participation in our democracy, and have always looked for innovative ways to do that. And I have a long history of being involved with the electoral process in the legislature. I served for 3 terms and took a very big interest in election reform and making voting easier. We had a number of horror stories in Rhode Island where we had people waiting in line for hours and hours to vote, and sometimes we actually had the oldest voting machines in the country, and sometimes the ballot was so long you almost had to get on your hands and knees just to read the bottom of the ballot questions and such. It seems so now, but that was the reality that we faced in my lifetime, not to mention the fact that being disabled myself, I'm the first quadriplegic elected to the United States Congress, but I was never really able to vote on my own independently going into the machine. I had to have someone with me and an assistant. And it wasn't until I became Secretary of State and I actually overhauled our entire state's election system that I actually brought true accessible voting to Rhode Island for people with disabilities, but also brought in new modern voting equipment. And I actually chair the Special Legislative Commission looking at alternative voting technologies and equipment when I was in the legislature, and then implemented the findings of that report when I was elected Secretary of State. But I'm excited about the future and about technology, but we have to proceed, of course, with caution as we work to ensure the integrity of the elections process. So again, I really am joining you again because this is an issue that means a lot to me personally. It really is the marriage of 2 passions of mine. Again, going back to 1994 when I became Secretary of State in my home state of Rhode Island, really we had the imperative to confront huge challenges of both an outdated electoral system and a less than transparent government. So I've seen firsthand shortcomings in those areas where it can do to trust and faith in government, but it also made me very passionate about the accessibility of the voting process, which is really so fundamental to our democracy. Now, e-voting has incredible promise in this regard, and especially to the population of disabled voters who may require a diversity of interfaces to the electorate. Now, the promise of e-voting for increasing accessibility and turnout is what originally interested me in this field. But my time in Congress, though, has given me a complementary perspective on the topic. So in 2008, I founded the Congressional Cybersecurity Caucus with my friend Mike McCall of Texas because I was concerned that Congress was paying far too little attention to the potential for cyber intrusions to cause great harm to our country. Chief among my concerns is that critical infrastructure, long hardened against physical attack, could be vulnerable in this new domain. Of course, our voting infrastructure is central to our country's existence as a democracy. And just like any other sector, there are vulnerabilities in expanding the use of information technology. Our electoral system prizes two fundamental principles, of course, and that's that each person should be entitled to cast one and only one vote, and that his or her ballot should be kept secret. Unfortunately, of course, these principles can clash with our desire that elections also be verified, that a voter should have confidence that his or her vote is counted. So the traditional voting system does an excellent job of ensuring anonymity and authentication, and there are very few instances of actual voter fraud or intimidation. Verification, of course, is a bit shakier. Hundreds of thousands of ballots are spoiled each election cycle, preventing voters' voices from being heard. Additionally, themselves are vulnerable to tampering and loss after being cast. To reduce the risk, of course, we rely on distributing oversight across many individuals, reducing the chances that a single bad actor could materially alter an election's outcome. Now, e-voting systems have these same goals, but must achieve them in very different ways. For instance, in traditional systems, double voting is prevented by requiring that a citizen vote only in his or her precinct. Preventing double voting remotely while retaining anonymity is a thornier problem, since the scale can be orders of magnitude larger. A single authentication authority might cover, for example, an entire state. Challenges of scale manifest themselves in other ways, including complexity of code running the system and ability of a single bad actor to compromise multiple services. So thankfully, our academicians have some clever solutions to these problems, and it turns out that solid cryptographic systems allow one to do all sorts of counterintuitive things. But here's the rub. The channel of communication between our brilliant cryptographers and our policymakers is filled with static. For instance, end-to-end verifiability is deemed by many scholars to be essential to a trustworthy e-voting system, as it allows auditors to confirm that ballots have been counted correctly without relying on the integrity of those doing the counting. So policymakers understand this goal. No matter how corrupt your elections are, if they tamper with the results, it will be noticed. But they definitely do not understand how it's implemented in different systems. In fact, the how is often viewed as borderline magical. You might say that one e-voting system uses a mathematical property for security, and one relies on the integrity of election officials not necessarily going to be evident to policymakers. So worse, without a concerted effort to educate politicians, there's a real risk that they will come to view different e-voting systems as Coke versus Pepsi, slightly different versions of the same product, when in fact the security of the competitors may be wildly different. Think Coke versus antifreeze, I guess you'd say. So it's difficult to overemphasize this point. So let me put it another way. Politicians are used to seeing shades of gray, not 50 Shades of Gray, shades of gray, and that's generally a good thing. Policymakers need to compromise, but the ability to see ambiguity can be dangerous when confronted with facts that are not intuitive. That's why facts can be lumped in with theories during political debate. And when talking about talking to policymakers about e-voting, therefore, it's imperative that the properties that we'd like to see in a system, such as an end-to-end verifiability, are separated from implementation choices of a particular system, or else policymakers are liable to miss critical points.